'Cause baby, it's the everything for me, for me, for me. Baby, it's the...
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. As you can tell by the title of the video, I will be doing how I got into Brown through QuestBridge, and I made like a 3-part series on TikTok of how I got into Brown, but this will be more of an in-depth, detailed out personal video of how I got into Brown. So I am currently a junior, and just giving a little background story of how I applied. I know that like during the summer before like the QuestBridge application came out, and even before like my senior year got started, I remember writing down in notes like just a whole list of like what the theme of my application was, what extracurriculars I wanted to put on my application. I think I'm glad that I put a little bit pressure on myself to start like sooner than later. So I think planning should start like summer before your senior year. I think that is like a perfect time to really start planning and thinking about college. What colleges that you want to attend, like what colleges you want to specifically apply for in terms of like safety, match, and reach. What extracurriculars you want to put, what's your overall theme. I know I was doing this like throughout high school, like 10th grade. I think I started to get serious about like wanting to go to an Ivy League school. I think I started doing extracurriculars like 10th grade of high school. So that's when I was like, okay, let me start writing these down, and then we start joining these positions because I know Ivy League schools look for these leadership positions. So starting as soon as possible with your college application is extremely important. So making sure that like you are jotting down, whether it's on notes or like wherever you can keep track of all of this information, like your overall theme of your application, what you want to include, the contributions that you've made to these extracurriculars, community service, and other projects that you've done, certain classes that you want to highlight within your application, and scores that you want to highlight within your application, what recommendations from your teachers or your advisors or anybody around you that you want to use. You want someone to proofread like your application. Who do you want to contact? This is like all crucial things that you should be thinking about before your senior year starts. I know for me, like I decided to start early during COVID. It was very unpredictable in terms of like would we go back or would we stay, but I knew for one thing, the college process was not going to end just because of COVID. So I knew during the summer this was a perfect time to get a head start on that. Make sure you're thinking about all of these things, even if you're doing QuestBridge or not. These are very crucial to your college application process. Just to give a little background story of what was going through my mind, like high school senior Arissa, like junior senior Arissa. At first, I was torn between Harvard and Yale. I know I wanted to go to Yale because this is around the time I wanted to be an actress, but that's in the past. And I did want to go to Harvard after seeing like Dominique Cynthia and a few other Ivy League like YouTube channels and videos, and seeing how like tight-knit the Black community was, right? Unfortunately, I was torn between the two. Like I said, I ended up choosing to go the QuestBridge route because QuestBridge had Yale and like 5 other Ivies at the time. Me, I'm a typical immigrant babe, like either an Ivy League or we're just not going to college at all. Blase, like that stereotypical mindset, right? And I think I was one of those seniors that was very confused on what need aid meant. I don't think like it was explained to me properly, so I didn't think I would go to Harvard on like a full ride. Versus with QuestBridge, they're advertising you're getting a full 4-year ride to any prestigious school. After contemplating between what schools I wanted to attend, either Harvard or like 6 Ivies at the time, which is now like 7 because they added Cornell, I just decided to do QuestBridge. But let me get into QuestBridge. Especially if you are a low-income student watching this video, I highly recommend you apply to QuestBridge. What QuestBridge is basically a program that matches low-income students to prestigious schools, basically like their partner schools. During my time, I think it was like 47 or 48, but now they have 52 partner schools. They keep on adding more by the year. And the way QuestBridge works, they have like 3 or 2 programs. First one is their College Prep Scholar program, which is dedicated towards low-income high school juniors to help them with resources and knowledge on like what to apply or just how to apply to top schools. And then when you do become a senior, you have the options of applying to their partner schools either through their National Match program or regular decision. I ended up doing National Match because National Match is a full 4-year ride, and we're going to an Ivy League school for a full 4-year ride. So I applied to QuestBridge Match program, and I'll just explain like the little timeline of how that works, parts of my application, and just a little bit of advice on like how to navigate the application process. My main theme for like my entire application was like wanting to give back to my parents' country, which is Ghana, focusing on social reform. That's why I had a heavy interest in being like a lawyer and focusing on social sciences like psychology, sociology, international relations, things of that nature. So like the overall theme of my application was just like an immigrant who wants to give back to her family's country and just kind of vocalize more on like issues and social issues within like African nations. That was kind of like the vibe I was going for. The way the process works with QuestBridge, they open up their application, I want to say like late summer, and I think you have like about a month to fill out QuestBridge's application. And I think I had waited till like basically the last minute to submit my application, but QuestBridge gives you until like the last week or second to last week of September to fill out the application. I do have my application right here. So with the QuestBridge application, they'll ask for your applicant information, like yourself, where you live. They'll ask you your demographics, you're a citizen, permanent resident. They'll ask for your parents' information and guardians' information. They'll ask for household income, how many people live there, and they'll go in to ask like your education, what current high school that you're attending, any coursework that you're currently doing. And this is kind of where you flex that you're taking AP or IB courses. I definitely put all of my IB courses that I took my senior year. And then after that, they'll ask you for any honors. I know I put like A honor roll, perfect attendance, and things of that nature. And then they'll ask you for like your interests and goals, standardized testing where you can put your ACT, SAT, or like IB and AP exams. I took the ACT, but I did not like my score. Like my score was not, you're getting into Ivy League at all. And because I was one of the classes that was deeply affected by COVID, like my class was the first class to go through COVID during their college application year, basically. So I had my ACT rescheduled, but it got canceled. So I decided to send my IB scores. I submitted the IB exams that, well, not really exams, they turned into essays because of COVID, but anyway, I turned in my IB essays May 2020 when I got my results. So I took IB Math SL, which I got a 5 out of 7 on, and I did IB Biology SL, which I got a 7 out of 7 on. So I submitted those. Additionally, outside of putting my IB scores on the QuestBridge application, I know I had to go on the IB website and actually get proof that I got these scores. So I remember just taking a screenshot of that, and I uploaded it like September 16th, like very early on. Also, before I submitted my application, I wrote down the specific teachers that I wanted to get my recommendations from. I did my IB history teacher for one of my recommendations, and then I did my biology teacher from like 10th grade as another recommendation. Make sure you're planning out in advance, again, like what teachers and what people you want to do your recommendations, because your recommendations is also a very crucial component of not only your QuestBridge application, but your college application overall. Like these people are advocating for you on your behalf as to why you should attend these schools. So make sure you are thinking through with the type of people that you want to write your recommendations. If you have a strong bond with these people, if they can speak really positively over you and things of that nature. I wrote down like the IB courses that I was taking. I think I wrote down the ones that I was taking during that time period, like senior year. So it was just IB history, the 20th century world topics. And with that history course, it was like an A day, B day, because the next day I would take IB English, and then I took IB Spanish, IB psychology, and I think I was taking IB theory of knowledge, and I didn't put it down, but I think I was taking that. And then after that, they'll ask you for your interests and goals. At the time, I was talking about pre-law, psychology, and social sciences. They ask you for your top interests in terms of like your career. I put lawyer, actor, and undecided. I don't know why I put undecided as number 1, but it's okay. They'll ask you like what your career goals are and how you develop them. Ask you for like paid work and things that you did. So I put down that I worked at Gap. I worked at Gap like my senior year, like the summer before my senior year started. They'll ask you for like home responsibilities. If you have to take care of kids, cousins, siblings, if you have to provide in terms of like finances or meals and things of that nature, so you can put down. And then they'll ask you for extracurriculars, which is the next thing. I said this in my TikTok, I will say this again. I was not heavily engaged in my extracurriculars. Like, yes, I was in extracurriculars, but because I didn't really have transportation like that at home, like I wasn't really too heavily engaged. Like I showed up, but like I wasn't able to like fully participate, if that makes sense. They'll ask you to put like a maximum of 5 extracurriculars, and then they'll give you an opportunity to add updates to those extracurriculars after like you submitted your application, like the next step when you become a QuestBridge finalist or not. So for my extracurriculars, I put 5 things. I put my volunteering at the Carolina Federation, which is this political organization just to help people in North Carolina with voting, saying that like I help people with the upcoming elections because this was the presidential election, elections in the States. Just saying, as an immigrant and who's unable to vote, I want my vote to be heard through others. So I remember that was like my reasoning for that. Next thing I put was like hobbies, like writing, singing, Afrobeat dancing, learning tree. Next thing was community service. In high school, I was in a sorority known as Lambda Zeta Chi. I think my junior year, I was treasurer, and then senior year, I became co-vice president. In terms of the description, I put that we had meetings, dance practice, step practice, school performances, community service, and like I established like a little blog during the time because like during senior year, like we didn't have the option of going to school till like late spring. So in order to attract more people and just have people online and join the org, I decided to create a little blog to show who we are. Next activity I did was Live in the Hive podcast club, which was run by my IB history teacher, and I was basically meeting with other 12th graders to discuss concerns and issues that like students at the school would like to hear. Basically, my IB history teacher would like send like a Google form out via email each and every week. Students will fill out that form and tell us what they wanted us to talk about, and we would talk about it via Zoom, and it was recorded. Then the last thing I put down for extracurriculars was drama club. I said casted for a virtual play and rehearsing for performance like 2 to 3 times a week. I think it was like 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. After we were like performing through Zoom, we had to show up to the school and actually like record, wear the costumes. I can't remember what play it was, but I know it was like an animal play. Most of these extracurriculars were done during like my senior year. Like Live in the Hive podcast club and drama club were definitely done my senior year. My sorority, I joined my sophomore year. I crossed my sophomore year. My hobbies, I think I said I've been doing that since freshman year. Joining the Carolina Federation, getting people to vote, I did that my senior year. That was an opportunity sent to me by one of my advisors. And then the next thing that QuestBridge will ask is any community-based organizations and other details that you did. And then they'll ask you what single activity listed represented your most meaningful commitment and why. Again, I chose the Carolina Federation and just emphasized the need to get my vote through other people as an immigrant. We'll have a short answer questions 1 and 2. Tell us about one of your most proudest achievements or moments and what it says about you. The second question was, if you could meet a character from a book or historical figure, who would it be and what would you ask them? And then the short answer questions were like things like, what is your favorite subject to study, favorite books, favorite source of inspiration, how you spend a typical weekend, what compliment are you most proud of receiving and who gave it to you, a challenging experience and how do you rejuvenate from that, and what would you contribute to your future college campus community. These were the main questions. Again, similar theme to what I said before about just like advocacy and trying to help my parents' country. Like that's kind of the vibe I gave. Next thing is down to the actual essays. So QuestBridge is not like the common app. QuestBridge will ask you 2 essays. They give you a list of like 4 to 5 prompts and then you select them. So for the first essay, I selected the prompt, we're interested in learning more about the context in which you have grown up, formed your aspirations, and accomplished your successes. Please describe how your most influential factors and challenges in your life have shaped you into the person you are today, with an 800-word limit. So unfortunately, I do not feel comfortable with sharing my essays, but I can give a little description. I think generally when it comes to like college essays and what you're supposed to write to these colleges, I think you're supposed to keep it at like one theme. Like don't make things complex. I didn't really listen to that rule. I made things complex. Like I know I talked about multiple things. I started off with my story of being like teased for being African and just talked about like how it triggered my generalized anxiety. Then I talked about how like my generalized anxiety, on a positive note, it made me very curious and inquisitive to learn more about my country and my culture, and just learning more about African culture that isn't properly highlighted by Americans, and just American education and Western education as a whole, and just having a duty to give back to my parents' whole country. For the second essay, I think the second essay was 500 words. I chose option 3, and it says, what do you admire most about your community and what would you improve? Again, reflected on the Afro community, talked about colonialism and our impact and being able to show our resilience through that. In terms of talking about like what I hated about the African community, I talked about like some of the sexist ideals, the strictness with upbringing and raising a child, and sometimes children become very limited and they go through these traumatizing experiences when they're raised with their African parents, and just saying that like our childhood shouldn't consist of these like sexist ideals and traditional ideals and things of that nature. Next thing that they ask is additional information, and then I just went into like didn't really have a lack of transportation back home, just being very vulnerable with them and saying like, hey, I have all of these extracurriculars, couldn't participate like other students, so c'est la vie. I talked about like not being able to take the ACT and SAT this year because of COVID. Like, especially like during my class year, like COVID had disrupted a lot of things, from test taking to attending events, going to extracurriculars, even just going to school. So like I made sure that I wrote that down. I think my advice to anybody watching this video is if you have any sort of issue that prevents you from fully engaging with school, fully engaging with your extracurriculars, and if you're still impacted by COVID till this day, make sure that you're letting these schools know and these scholarships and any programs that you're applying to, because 9 times out of 10 it will really help you out with your application. Like fill in that gap of like, oh, like why wasn't this student able to do this, that, and the third? You have like a legitimate reason. So make sure that you are being vulnerable with these things that you're applying to. And the last thing from my application, I think my high school advisor put this here, but like I put my transcript that showed all of my grades from like 9th grade to like 12th grade. That was the end of that application, and I submitted my application, I believe I submitted my application September 29th, 2020. So again, during like the last week of September is usually when the QuestBridge application is due. I heard back from QuestBridge, I want to say 3 weeks later, with like a message saying like, congratulations, you're a QuestBridge finalist. Now you can move forward with the QuestBridge process if you want to go through with the national match application process or regular decision. So you have an option to do either or. And to note, if you do not get into any college that you apply to through going through the national college match route, you'll end up going through the regular decision route. After you become a QuestBridge finalist, once you find that out, you have to submit specific documents depending on like how many schools that you are ranking. So I ranked 5 schools. I ranked Yale, Princeton, Brown, Columbia, UPenn, or it might be UPenn, Columbia. Okay, yeah, since this page is inactive, I think that was the order of the Ivy League schools I ranked. It's not allowing me to view like the actual like ranking form, but those are all of the schools that I ranked. The only school that I really didn't want to go to was Dartmouth, but besides that, like all of the other Ivies that like QuestBridge had available, I just wanted to apply to that. I began doing like all of my research to see like what specifically I liked about the school and what I wanted to do in terms of just like clubs, classes, concentrations, and things like that, just to help me with their short answer questions. You're ranking up to 12 schools max. Again, I ranked 5 out of 6 Ivies. After you submit that, you have to submit all of the match requirements for each school that you're applying to. I had to submit all of the match requirements for basically Yale, Columbia, UPenn, Princeton, and Brown. I believe the match requirements will basically like be short answers from the schools and just any other pieces of information that like they wanted to know specifically about you or like catered to like their regular application. For some reason, it's not allowing me to access like what the match requirements were, but I think what's included in the match requirements is their short answer like questions. I think their short answer questions on average were like 200 to 300 words. I know I did my answers for all of 5 Ivies questions. I put it in like a separate Google Doc, but it was just like a similar theme of what I told you, just like helping Ghana and just helping my country, like that humanitarian activist type of vibe. Make sure that you're having somebody like proofread these answers and essays that you're doing. I know for me, I had reached out to a family friend and asked if he knew anybody at Duke that could assist me because he worked at Duke as a professor at the time, and he had referred me to this sweet lady who was able to help me out with like my essay and my overall application process. So that's also to like what contributed to me getting into Brown. I definitely wouldn't have gotten to Brown without her. So definitely use any like external resources around you, either through family, through school, through all of these other programs that are available to you. You just have to really like research and just like be proactive in just like asking people, hey, is there any way I can get further assistance? And just asking people, even like your teachers, if there's a way for them to assist you. Because I know before I reached out to that Duke professor, I was talking to my English teacher who was more than happy to check out my application. So there's obviously resources and people around you who are willing to help you. Just make sure that you are asking to see. It only just takes asking to get assistance with these applications. I had to submit all of these by November 1st, which is like a short period of time. So again, October 15th, I found out I was a QuestBridge finalist, and then 16 days later, like that's the deadline to submit everything from all of these schools and their requirements. The more schools you have, the more work you have to do. So keep that in mind as too. It's like a very short time limit, only because like QuestBridge is basically like an early decision program, but rather than early decision when you're applying to one school, it's giving you the opportunity to apply to 12 schools. So keep that in mind. I cannot stress enough, especially if you're doing the national match scholarship route, make sure you are researching these schools. Make sure that you're doing as much research as possible to see if you want to truly go, because that's binding. Once you sign that contract, that's it. And you are working with like a limited amount of information, because again, it is based off of your own research, talking to people who potentially have attended these schools, who are in your network, whatever the case may be. I know that during my time that no tours were allowed. I had to do virtual tours with these schools. I only knew one person who attended the Ivy League, and that was like one of my uncle's like friend's child. He had attended Princeton, and I asked him like a few questions about Princeton. So again, using your network to see if you can get people who have the knowledge about these schools that you want to apply to. But you really have to, I know I had to go above and beyond because of COVID, and it limited so much. But again, putting a heavy emphasis on make sure you're researching these schools if you are taking the national match route, because once you're in, that's it. I had to sign a contract and everything. Like, it is binding. The deadline was November 1st. I waited till November 1st to submit this. Highly wouldn't recommend. I actually don't know why I waited last minute to submit these forms, but I think with high school, I was doing a lot during my senior year. I had like way too much outside of like working, being at home, having my IB courses, having my extracurriculars, having my community service. I was like very overwhelmed outside of just like staying up and trying to find time to actually work on like college and college applications as a whole. And also too, QuestBridge is not guaranteed. It is like a very competitive program. QuestBridge also emphasizes this with their website. Make sure if you do decide to go the QuestBridge route, whether you are doing regular decision or their national match program to get a full ride, make sure you're still applying to other schools through like regular decision. So for me, I still applied to like North Carolina schools, some other HBCUs. Outside of QuestBridge, the only school that I really knew I got into was Spelman, and that was about it. I don't think I had found out any other school I got into, because by that time I think I had to tell the school like I have to withdraw my application. Once you get into QuestBridge's partner school through National College Match, they'll email you and tell you like, hey, you have to contact all of the schools that you applied to and tell them that you have to withdraw your application. So also, when you are applying to schools outside of QuestBridge's partners through regular decision, make sure you are keeping track of the list of schools, so it's easier for you to contact them and ask like, hey, can you withdraw my application? Because I know with college and just applying to colleges, people apply to a lot, like 50 plus. So make sure you are keeping track of all of the schools that you apply to outside of QuestBridge. But yeah, again, I waited till November 1st to submit it. Highly do not recommend. And then you have to wait a month to find out if you got into any of QuestBridge partner schools. Again, Brown was number 3. So December 1st, I remember it like it was yesterday, because I know I was extremely anxious. Like, I remember asking my parents if I could go to work, because I was just like, I couldn't be at home waiting. But I think it was like around 3 p.m. like I got the email like, hey, there's been an update to your QuestBridge application. I took a break during that time. And I remember just rushing to the break room and checking my phone on FaceTime with my best friend. It was like, congratulations, you got into Brown. And I was like, period. I was like, basically waiting till December 1st to find out if you got into any of QuestBridge's partner schools. If you don't get into any of QuestBridge's partner schools through the national match route, it's not the end of the world. You still have the opportunity to apply to QuestBridge partner schools through the regular decision, which still you are able to avoid application fees. So that's another benefit. I think it's about 40% of QuestBridge finalists who don't match are still able to get into their partner schools. I think it's still a different application process based off of the schools and what their individual requirements are. So again, just making sure that you are keeping track and you are paying attention and going on their websites to see what you need to submit and what you need to fill out. Once I got into Brown, that was pretty much it. Again, I had to contact all of the schools that I applied to, but it wasn't too much of the schools like I applied to through regular decision. But I contacted all of the schools I applied to, just stated like, hey, I've gotten into Brown University through QuestBridge. I'm not able to attend your school. Can you please withdraw my application? That's it. You're basically chilling for your whole high school senior year. You could focus now on like watching college videos of like college advice and preparing to get onto like college campus. Things that you need in terms of like dorm necessities, materials, and things of that nature. It's the perfect time to research like what concentration you want to do. If you want to apply any AP or IB credits to specific courses, or whatever the case may be, that's another great opportunity to do so. I know for me, none of my IB credits applied to any of my humanities courses, so I couldn't do that. Looking at certain clubs that you want to do, watching videos of like interviews of people from that specific school and just getting their advice on like how they view the school overall. There's a lot of things that you can do, and again, you just have that free time to just research and see and kind of plan in advance what you want to do with school, which is what I did. I know for me, like during this time, like as soon as I got into Brown, I know I was buying Brown merch. That Duke professor had gotten me Brown merch as a gift. I know I was looking at like the concentrations at Brown and what I wanted to take specifically. I was on Instagram trying to connect with like other incoming Brown students. So there's a lot of opportunities to just interact and kind of like immerse yourself into your college's environment, even though you're technically just an incoming student. So that's like another crucial opportunity that you have. But that is basically it. That is basically how I got into Brown. Again, QuestBridge is catered towards people who are low income, and I highly recommend for any high school senior watching this video, do QuestBridge. I think one of the hardest things that you will come across in college is paying for college, and to have that stress gone, especially being low income, knowing that you don't have those financial resources to pay for college is truly a blessing. So again, I highly recommend anybody do QuestBridge. Shoot for the National College Match Scholarship, because I know for me, I know I desired to go to Ivy League school, but I didn't think it was possible. But I decided to give it a shot and see, like, let me not limit my opportunities. Let me live my dreams. Let me make my dreams come true. Let me actually apply. All of the resources are available on their website, and I will put it in the description box down below. And if you guys have any further questions or concerns, feel free to put it in the comment section, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye. Feelings so deep in my feelings. Notice they really like